everyone, I am Christy from YA and Wine, and I am here today with debut author of Last Star Burning, Caitlin Sangster. Caitlin, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today.
Glad to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you. I absolutely loved this book, so I'm so excited to get to talk about it a little bit. So, for those of you that haven't heard about this novel just yet, do you want to start by just giving us a brief description about Last Star Burning and what it's all about?
For sure. It's about a girl who is the daughter of a well-known trader who has to leave the place that she grew up. It's the last safe haven from sleeping sickness when she's accused of murdering her best friend.
So interesting. I absolutely loved it. And this is definitely my favorite dystopic novel that I've gotten to read so far in 2017. So I was going to ask you, what are some key elements that you think every dystopic novel really needs to have?
I think dystopia obviously needs to be dystopic. So like post-apocalyptic, where something big happened to significantly change how the world looks, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Dystopia is the opposite of utopia. So there's something really terrible that has changed society to something that is negative, I suppose, I think.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of us versus them and people competing for basic resources a lot of times, and structured societies a lot of times in dystopia. I think that might be overdone sometimes, but there's a lot of survival stuff going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And this book definitely has all those elements specifically. Which element do you think was the most fun for you to write and to delve into while you were going through this book?
I think I had the most fun writing post-apocalyptic culture and thinking how people would cope with of having to stay within a small area, or like how a government would force somebody to do that in order to keep them from wandering out and figuring out what's going on outside. I really liked the idea of going outside and seeing things outside for the first time, and it both being as scary as the character thought it would be, but also not. And seeing new things was one of the things that I had fun writing.
Absolutely. I was so much fun to watch Seb kind of walk out of that secluded environment that she'd always been in and experience other parts of the world and kind of open her eyes to the society that she lived in. It was so fascinating, and definitely I think what added so much tension into that plot. So, speaking of dystopic novels, what are some YA dystopic novels that you think are really great reads?
Well, everybody loves The Hunger Games, of course.
Yes, of course.
Other dystopias I really like. I had really a lot of fun with Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson.
Yes, we were just talking about that. That is a great book.
That one's really fun because he puts those extra elements of superhero powers in them. But I feel like he does a good job of showing like the dystopic side of what superpowers really do to people.
Yeah.
Twisting things that are good to be not so good. And I can't think of any other off the top of my head, even though I really like dystopia, so I'll have to think about that.
And it's so funny that we're not seeing very many of them right now, and I know so many readers like me would love to see more of these books, so you guys, if you like dystopias, definitely pick this one up. You'll absolutely love it. So what is the single best piece of writing advice that you received before you wrote your first draft of Last Star Burning?
Probably just to keep writing. I think one of the hardest things for new writers to do is to just get a first draft done. I mean, it's harder for seasoned writers to do that too. It's really hard because you go through all the phases of I have this really shiny, beautiful idea, and then you get into the hard part where you actually have to write all the way to the end, and it feels like junk about 80% of the time you're writing.
Right.
And then you get to the end, and it's suddenly this big whole thing that you can manipulate so it's better. But getting to the end is really important, and forcing yourself to be disciplined enough to just keep going, I think is the best thing that you could ever do. And somebody told me that, and that is what got me through this first draft.
Absolutely.
Of this book.
So do you think it's any different type of approach that you need to take into writing a dystopic type novel than into writing like a fantasy or contemporary? Do you have to start somewhere else where you're doing your world building or plotting?
Not necessarily. I mean, there are lots of different kinds of dystopia. You have like classic literature like 1984,
right?
And then you have The Hunger Games. I think a dystopia is just a genre, and it isn't necessarily the kind of it's not a genre that says it has to be an action book or it has to be a romance book or whatever else. Though a lot of YA dystopia does have romance in it. A lot of YA has romance, right?
Yes.
And with a fantasy, it's the same. I think that a plot can, you choose what kind of plot you want in a book, and it doesn't necessarily change based on the genre necessarily. So no, I don't think you have to start in a different place.
Okay, good to know. So let's put on your sorting hat for a second. So let's say that the main character in this book, Sev, just got her Hogwarts acceptance letter. So what house would you sort her into and why?
Sev, I think that she is a Gryffindor actually, but kind of like a sneaky Gryffindor who hasn't quite figured it out yet. So she is very brave in her situation, which is kind of difficult in the city. And I think she's pretty brave once she gets out of it, but it's not in your typical YA heroine running around shooting things sort of way. She's very much more of an analytical, like figuring out where things are and where she fits into it, and how she can make the best of it. I think she's a very positive character for the most part. She tries to joke her way through things that are hard and tries to bolster other people up, and she's a brave character. So yeah, I think Gryffindor.
Absolutely. And she's a great example of female strength in literature, and not just like physical strength. Like she's so smart and analytical, like you said, but she's got like such a great heart, and she's such a good person as well. So I absolutely loved her. What house would you be in if you went to Hogwarts?
I think probably more of a Ravenclaw.
Me too. Ravenclaws.
Yeah.
So you lived in both Xinjiang and Taiwan when you were younger, and you also have a BA in Asian Studies. So how have those experiences kind of impacted your world building when you went into writing Last Star Burning?
Well, I think I went to China the first time and just fell in love. It is such a different place, and the people are so different, and I just loved the language, and I loved the culture, and I just loved being able to experience it firsthand and just being in the middle of it. And so when I came back and did my degree, I feel like I learned all of the things that I didn't understand while I was there. And because I was just so immersed and so excited about the culture, I felt like I had to write a book about it and share it with other people. And so a lot of the world building that happens in there are just things that I was really super excited about.
Oh, I love that. The world building is so amazing in this novel. So much political intrigue and scheming and just different elements that are so much fun to read. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience as being a 2017 debut author?
Sure. Before I actually sold this book, I did not have any connection to the writing community at all. I didn't even have a real writing group. I was living up in Montana, which is really remote.
Oh, okay.
Even, by normal people's standards, much less the writing community standards. I'm sure that there are writers up there, but I didn't really know any of them. And so I moved down here maybe when I was maybe a year out from the book, or maybe a little bit than that, I can't remember. But I just met all of these people who were so excited about writing and about story arcs and character development, and their eyes didn't glaze over when I started talking about it. And I think that most writers have obsessive personalities. I don't know if all of them do, and I'm just projecting, but I feel like in order to stick with something and create a whole world for somebody else, you have to kind of be a little bit, there's things tweaked funny in your head maybe.
Yeah, no, it seems to be a common thing.
So I felt like it was a relief just to be around. I had a group of 2017 debut authors that I could just talk to about the things that were hard and the things that were easy and the things that were fun, and bounce ideas off of them. And so I just found my tribe. It was fun.
That's awesome. Do you have any advice for any aspiring authors that are trying to find a writing group or critique partners?
Yes. I would say check out your libraries and bookstores for one thing, because I think that, if there are local authors around, that they would have connections in those places. Also, go online and find writing communities there. There are so many people on Twitter who do things like pitch wars, or there are lots of contests like that, and there are lots of more seasoned authors that want to help younger authors. I have a podcast, I was just telling you about this, where we critique the beginning of people's books, people who are querying, who need to polish those first 10 pages. There are lots of resources out there, that will help connect you to other writers, and usually that develops into like real relationships and friendships that like put you with other people who think the same way you do.
So what is your podcast going to be called?
It's called Literary Work in Progress.
Literary Work in Progress, and it comes out when?
It's starting in September.
Starting September. Oh, awesome. So definitely listen to that. And also this book comes out on 10/10, so pretty much the coolest release date you could have this year.
Right.
Yeah. So make sure you pre-order your copy. I've got links below to Goodreads. You can add it to your TBRs and as information for pre-ordering as well. Caitlin's doing an event here in Utah at the King's English on October 20th. So there's a link below for how you can pre-order your signed copy as well if you'd like to grab one of those. And Caitlin, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Bye guys, happy reading.